All right, now let's add a random container. So you can see our containers up here are not highlighted because we're selecting the sound object here. So we're still in our actor mixer hierarchy, select default work unit. And once in a while I have a weird thing where both will select. And if that happens, I have to either alt click or control click to kind of get me out of the weird state. It's not happening here, but sometimes that happens. Now that we've selected our work unit, we can add something from up here. So we want a new random container. And we're going to name it random1. A container, all these containers are just, they hold collections of WAV files and other objects. Currently, our WAV file is the child of the default work unit. So our random container has nothing in it. So Wwise works on this whole nested hierarchy. It's a parent-child relationship, and it can go many levels deep. So we have a few ways of getting our WAV file in there. We can either right-click like before, or we can drag from our browser like before, or since we already have the WAV file here, we can just drag that right in. And now when we play random, we'll be playing this WAV file. So it's an important distinction to know when you're clicked on random, you're seeing in the property editor all the properties for the random container. And when you're clicked on a WAV file, a sound object, you're seeing all the properties for this sound object. So if you set some properties here like volume, that would only be affecting the single sound object. But if you set volume here for this random container, you're affecting all of the sound objects that will be found within this random container. And we'll be adding more in a minute. So now if we want to hear this, we go down here to our transport, and we hear that sound. So now we can drag in another sound. And I don't want to drag it in the work unit because that would create a sound object as a child of the work unit. But we want it as a child of the random container. So drop it on top of the random container, just imports right in. So now any settings I make here will be affecting anything that's contained in this random container. So yeah, there's that weird thing. All right, so if I select here and I turn down the volume, that's only affecting the volume of the one sound object. So if we turn this back up, and we adjust the volume on the random container, now it affects everything beneath it. So you always have to be conscious of the property editor, which elements you're actually editing over here. It can get, because they look very similar, there's a lot of similar items between the two. So always make sure you're on the right property editor screen for the thing you want to edit. The other thing is also make sure you're on the right transport. If I'm playing random here, I want to make sure the transport is on random if I want to hear random. When you have a lot of elements over here and you're kind of cruising around, it can be really easy to get out of sync with your transport with what you're selecting on over here. So you're hitting the transport and you think you're hearing one thing, but you're really hearing another thing. So one way you can get around that is to, if I always want to hear this random, I can just pin that random in the transport. So no matter what else I click on, I'm always going to hear that random. And that's the basics of a random container.